Pitiful.
Who are you?
Where are my manners? Sonic, meet Knuckles, my new BFFAE, bestest friend forever and ever.
Growing up, I absolutely loved the Sonic franchise, despite the fact that, well, even then it got a lot of flack for, well, the games not being very good usually. Between the shows, the comics, the games, the OVA, just everything. I was enamored by the world's lore and simply couldn't help wanting more and more despite how deeply flawed it may all be. Like, let's be honest here, most of the shows are extremely dated. I mean, the majority of them came out in the 90s, and it really does show, especially with Sonic Underground. And the games can be very hit or miss, and I mean very hit or miss. The comics for the most part are fairly strong, but even then they have their fair share of doozies. However, despite all the franchise's downfalls, a lot of people just can't help loving it. And I don't mean loving it in a joking manner like most people do nowadays. I mean actually loving it. And the reason for that has to be the characters. Without a doubt, the series would be nothing without its cast of characters. Well, most things wouldn't survive without the characters, but these characters are practically irreplaceable. They're all so unique in personality, design, and dynamic with one another. And it's because of the fantastic characters that people keep coming back. They're simply irresistible and they're just great. Like most people though, with most things, there's always that one character that grabs your attention. One that for whatever reason, you just can't rack your brain for a reason to dislike them. A character that even now, no matter what situation they're put in, you can't help adoring them immensely. For me, that character was always Knuckles. How do you even describe Knuckles at this point? He's been through so many different stages of characterization that it's actually kind of mind-boggling. I think the easiest thing to do would be to go back to the very beginning of it all, when we first met the Red Knucklehead. First, we need a structural timeline of any piece of media we'll be discussing today as a sort of map to how Knuckles fell down so far to dumbassery. Knuckles' first appearance was in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 for the Sega Genesis in 1994. From there, he started off as some brooding loner who only enjoyed the company of his beloved Master Emerald, which he had sworn to protect from evildoers on Angel Island, isolated far from the rest of society. Despite his stubborn, hot-headed nature, he had always been, well, very naive. Due to him being isolated from the rest of the world for so long, Knuckles didn't really have that many social skills, so he was fairly easy to manipulate. I mean, it seems to be a daily routine for Eggman. His gullibility was always his downfall, and he would always accidentally join the side he was trying to fight against, all in the name of the Emerald. Sonic and him initially start off as enemies because Eggman convinces Knuckles that Sonic is after the Emerald, so that while he's distracted by fighting off Sonic, he completely misses Robotnik's great theft. The story always ends with Sonic and Knuckles teaming up and retrieving the Emerald before it's too late, and them forming a sort of kinship. Now canonically friendly rivals with Sonic, and later the rest of the gang, Knuckles begins to open up a bit more, and it's made clear that deep down, Knuckles is extremely kind-hearted. He just lacks the ability to express anything but his protective rage towards anyone who dares to come between him and his beloved duty to the Emerald. These core characteristics of Knuckles stay the same throughout the majority of the franchise's current life. However, the levels of importance in his personality fluctuate. Sometimes, like in Sonic X for example, at the start of the show, he's very independent and angry. But then in the Sonic OVA from the 90s, he just seems like some backcountry relatively normal yet stubborn dude with a few anger issues here and there. However, both of those pieces stay true to his gullibility being his fatal flaw in the end. And then there's Knuckles from Sonic Boom, who just morphs his naive nature into being nothing but a bumbling fool, especially in the show. In the godforsaken Rise of Lyric game, his hot-headed attitude still shines through every now and then, but it's practically disappeared in terms of the TV show's counterpart. Now listen, this video is not meant to hate on Boom Knuckles or the Boom universe of Sonic. I do in a way sort of like that period of time in the Sonic universe, despite its continuous major downfalls. But I digress. More on that tidbit later. Like I said, Knuckles in Sonic Boom was reduced to nothing except the big lovable oaf, whose sole purpose in life was to make you chuckle. Which is kind of ironic, considering Knuckles of the past refused to ever once let out one of those. I remember when the character designs were initially announced for Sonic Boom like it was yesterday. I was astonished, and so was everyone else. I mean, how does this become that? They're not even remotely the same character. He doesn't even have his mittens. I don't like being able to see Knuckles' fingers, thank you very much. I remember actually being angry over Knuckles' complete character design, because it didn't just affect his outside. It was everything. His personality, his dynamics with the other characters, and the serious lack of his dedication to the Master Emerald. However, over time, I learned how to separate the Boom characters to their typical counterparts. Everyone's a little different in Sonic Boom, actually. Sonic seems much more snarky and tired. Amy is just a beacon of, look at me, I'm a girl doing things, isn't that cool? Which, honestly, Knuckles says it best.
You know, Amy, anytime someone calls attention to the breaking of gender roles, it ultimately undermines the concept of gender equality by implying that this is an exception and not the status quo.
Eggman is much more chill and goofy in a weird way, and he's far funnier in my opinion. But Tails is actually relatively normal. He just seems a little less dependent on Sonic if anything. Knuckles was simply the most obvious change of them all. I mean, just his silhouette is kind of a shocker, especially when that's all you initially had to go off of with this new and cool Sonic spin-off. Like, what are the fans supposed to do? Well, the obvious answer would be to make an ongoing string of Knuckles memes in a world that was already filled to the brim with various different Sonic memes. Right? Boom Knuckles became nothing but a joke. However, it wasn't for nothing. He honestly deserved the teasing. Plus, it was really funny at the time, and still is for the most part. Unlike some other drawn-out memes in the Sonic fanbase. Not only was his design hilarious beyond our wildest dreams, the Sonic Boom game was absolutely broken, especially when it came to Knuckles. If you weren't living under a rock and were around in 2014, you probably heard about the infinite jumping Knuckles glitch from the game. Basically, if you pressed a certain sequence of buttons and paused your game mid-jump while playing as Knuckles, you could, well, jump literally forever. Even into oblivion. I remember watching the Game Grumps Sonic Boom playthrough religiously and absolutely dying of laughter whenever Aaron would abuse the power of the forbidden Knuckles jump. God, those were such simpler times in my life. There were some people that could beat the game within hours through using this glitch. And oh my god, it was quite the sight to behold. As funny as the whole fiasco was though, it didn't help in the realm of Knuckles' soured reputation as some broken-minded dummy. Like, really? Of course the glitch happens to Knuckles, of all the characters. What bad timing for him. Thus, like I said, brought upon a huge wave of Knuckles memes. From his own theme song to And Knuckles, Ugandan Knuckles, and so many more. Knuckles became a joke outside the world of Sonic Boom, which, as the title states, is hilariously unfortunate for him. Knuckles in Sonic Boom and Knuckles in like 98% of the other canon Sonic catalog pieces are two completely different entities. If normal Knuckles were able to meet Boom Knuckles, he would probably hide his face in shame because, is that really what I've become? Knuckles, despite being a bit naive, was still a somewhat stronger voice of reason in the group when it came to anything not involving the Master Emerald. It's game over when that thing comes into play. He was meant to be the complete opposite of Sonic. He was created simply to starkly contrast the Hedgehog, but blend so well with each other at the same time. He used brute strength and force to get things done, whereas Sonic used his agility and manipulation to win. Sonic is a massive jokester, whereas Knuckles simply doesn't get that reference. Or care for it, to be honest. Sonic was never an idiot, but he was a bit more flippant and nonchalant, whereas Knuckles had always been very serious and to the point. Sonic had lots of friends and got along with everyone, whereas Knuckles seemingly had no one and never ever tried to get anyone. Even back in the 90s when they were drawing up concepts for Knuckles, one of their main focuses was for his design to directly contrast Sonic's. The crescent moon on Knuckles' chest is supposed to directly contradict the sun on Sonic's torso. They were literally designed to be night and day, so that they could easily rival one another, but at the end of the day work together flawlessly as a team. But then you flip the channel back to Sonic Boom, and they're still in opposition to one another, but the switch has been flipped and they're on the other side this time around. With Sonic carrying the weight of being the quote-unquote smarter one, and Knuckles, well, just being a complete himbo. Albeit strange and quite jarring to see characters that you have come to know so well over the years change so intensely, it can be refreshing, especially when you know it's not permanent to the core Sonic canon. It's just some spin-off that'll die off in a few years and we won't have to deal with the dumbassery of Knuckles any longer. Right? Well, kind of, but kind of not at the same time. But to be honest, it's a welcome and good change. In the normal Sonic Universe games, Knuckles went back to his usual self with his usual personality and level of IQ. But in comes the self-aware Sonic the Hedgehog cinematic universe, which, may I add, is everything I have ever wanted from a Sonic film adaptation. Without giving too many, or, well, any spoilers for the second film in the series, Knuckles is back to his core personality and naivete, but with how self-aware the live-action series is, his trusting nature and lack of social skills comes off as a joke. And it's perfect. Movie Knuckles is the perfect amount of solemnity, but silliness as well for Knuckles. I think it's his perfect characterization to date. There, I said it, and well, I'm not sure if that's a hot take or not, but I'll stand by my statement wholeheartedly. The film version of Knuckles takes elements from almost every version of his character and brings all the pieces of him together to make the ultimate life form. You can laugh at him, but not in a way that relies on him being an idiot, or him hating everyone that isn't a giant green jewel. However, as a himbo lover myself, they're probably one of my favorite types of characters. I grew to really love Boom Knuckles despite the rash changes to his character. Again, especially in the show. The show is gold. Probably the best Sonic show for the fact that it's just so hilarious. And so in a way, I do miss that version of Knuckles, and I'm glad that the film took the route of making him a bit of a goof, but not to the point where he can't even count to potato. As we've talked about before in a previous video, taking one singular trait of a character, that being Knuckles' gullibility, and inflating it to the point where that's all the character is anymore, is a very detrimental move and can either make or break your success. You can either learn from skewing the character to the point of unfamiliarity, or you can just keep riding down that road until there's no way to turn around and return to what once was. So now, I guess the real question is this. Was the flanderizing Himbo-ification of Knuckles strictly character development, or de-evolution to a once cool and badass character? Well, I personally think it's a bit of both. This series is lucky to have a fanbase as invested and dedicated as this one, because despite their continuous mistakes and floozies in terms of, well, everything, it's still widely beloved and successful. And despite Knuckles becoming one of the greatest laughs of the Sonic fanbase, to even outsiders, he still is extremely beloved by probably all of the fanbase except for a few weirdos. Even though the blatant and disappointing wrath of flanderization grabbed a hold of Knuckles, Sega learned from the meme-filled backlash of them redefining his character and brought him back to who he was always meant to be. The strong, stubborn, naive, hot-headed, dedicated, and secretly a softie Knuckles, who was born to protect the Master Emerald rather than question what the hell an emerald even is. In a weird kind of way, it was sort of character growth. The mistakes of Sonic Boom, despite those mistakes being absolutely hilarious, gave light to a new side of Knuckles, one that they modified later on, but did stick with in a way that suits his character and stays true to who he really is at the end of the day. As a lifelong Knuckles fan, I will always stick by him and love any adaptation of his character that they throw at us. I may criticize it, but I'll still manage to find some good in it, just like Boom Knuckles. And I don't think I'm the only one who feels that way. In the past few years, the TV show for Sonic Boom has gained some traction for just how funny and self-aware it is. People are able to appreciate it much more in hindsight now that we know the stupidity of Knuckles wasn't a permanent feature of his character. That constant worry of, oh my god, is this really what he's been reduced to? The lovable idiotic beefcake? Is no longer there. So it's easy to just sit back and find enjoyment in all of it. Which, it just makes me really happy to see the show get the appreciation that it always deserved. I remember watching it every week that it came out from the start, and finding it better and better with each passing episode. It knew people didn't care about it, so they just did whatever they wanted to do with it and made something extremely unique. But in a good way. Unlike its predecessor from the 90s. At the end of the day, I'm glad that Knuckles' character is finally in a, dare I say, perfect spot now. Himbo Knuckles will always have a special place in my heart despite the weirdness of the whole thing. After all the changes he's gone through, of course I'm happy his character is in a great state currently. I'm sure he's feeling relieved about it too. But like I said, even if the company throws some more weirdness his way under the veil of an experiment, I'll find some way to enjoy the change. Even if the Sonic team does make it difficult at times.